Hi guys. Okay, Brittany here. We're gonna go over some stuff. I'm just gonna get started. Okay, quick things actually. If the phone rings, I'm sorry. It's a landline. My baby's swinging over there, so I might have to get her in a second. I have some siblings here that are living in the house, so if you hear any background noise, that's what you're hearing. If you have any problems hearing me, please just let me know. I don't know, any way you can communicate to me. Anyways though, let's get started. So I'm also going to be putting some stuff in the comment box or whatever box that is below the screen about things to emphasize and to know in regards to your pop quiz. So hopefully you've read it or you can follow along the book with me. Lots of cool and interesting stuff. So we're gonna go over chapter 23 and let's get started. I don't think there's any, oh, I also have two handouts that I'm gonna refer to later on. You don't have to pull them out right now, but later on or whatever. It's gonna be the one that looks like this, cool stuff, and the one that talks about the lymphatic circulation. Okay, so pull those two out. Theory chapter 6, or theory week 6. Okay. Oh, my niece is also here, so if you hear her, that's what's going on. Okay, so chapter 23, the hematologic and lymphatic systems. So basically it starts out with the hematologic system consists of blood, plasma and formed elements, and bone marrow, the primary organ that manufactures blood cells. The lymphatic system consists of the lymphatic vessels and tissues and lymph. Other organs and structures such as the spleen, liver, and kidneys also perform specific related functions. Okay, so the structure and the function. Hopefully you've gone over this in A&P. I don't know for sure, but I can ask it on. I don't know. Anyways, though, if you've gone over it in A&P, it'll be super helpful. The functions of the hematologic system are transportation, regulation, and protection. These functions involve delivery of nutrients and oxygen, as well as immune substances and hormones to the cells. They also remove waste and all that kind of stuff. It's really nice, constantly circulating in our body. We have blood and lymph that's just kind of cleaning everything out. Okay, so then there's a nice little key concept here. I'm also on page 267. The hematologic and lymphatic systems have transportation and protective functions in the body. Also, blood functions in regulatory processes and lymph functions in the manufacture of formed elements, removal of foreign substances, and absorption and storage of specific substances. Awesome. Then it starts out with blood. Blood is a versatile vascular fluid, heavier, thicker, and more viscous than water. It maintains hemostasis within our body through its viscosity or thickness and by its ability to carry dissolved substances to all body parts. Then it goes on to about the transportation of oxygen, carbon dioxide, nutrients, heat, waste, blood, pH regulation, all that kind of stuff that we kind of talked about before. So also, blood is considered a connective tissue because it shares many characteristics with other connective tissues. Interesting. But it differs because its cells are more freely and able to move throughout the body. So then it has different types of talking about things. Something I want to emphasize though, it goes into what's called erythropoiesis, refers to the formation of red blood cells. It's a glycoprotein type hormone. Erythropoietin is secreted by the kidneys, important to know, in adults. And then on the next page, on page 268, there's a really nice little box, 23.1. It talks about the functions of the systems. Good, just nice to refer to. Okay, so then when it comes back to erythropoietin and erythropoiesis, this stimulates stem cells in the bone marrow to produce red blood cells. The kidneys secrete erythropoietin, which then stimulates in your body, in your bone marrow, to secrete more red blood cells. That's my niece. Sorry. Okay, so a key concept. A form of erythropoietin derived in DNA technology may be used to treat the type of anemia caused by insufficient or ineffective red blood cells. This is called recombinant human erythropoietin, or Epogen alpha, and that was under a key concept. So, kind of what we talked about before. Blood is composed of both plasma and formed elements. It's carried through a closed system. The adult body contains about 46 liters of blood at one time. So, boom, plasma. Plasma is the fluid portion of circulating blood, constitutes of 55% of blood volume, and plasma is 90% water. Yeah, honey? I love you. I'm making a video. I gotta keep doing some homework, okay? Of course you can come down here. Yeah.
Mommy, and Whitney said they can come down there. Okay.
It remains, so then another 10% consists primarily of plasma proteins, but it also includes salts, electrolytes, nutrients, nitrogenous waste, products, gases. Hi, honey. I'm just doing some homework. And enzymes. Let's see here. Then it kind of talks about the different electrolytes. Oh, is that you? So I'm talking about all kinds of things here. So plasma proteins. I love you. So there's 4 groups of plasma proteins, and they're manufactured in the liver. Albumin, which we talked about, is that protein that kind of pulls things together. Remember that 13-month pregnant lady, the ascites? Albumin is what's going to help pull that out of there. And then it has different things. And then it talks about fibrinogen and prothrombin are 2 other plasma proteins essential for blood clotting, which is super important. Oh, she's okay. For the, sorry. Fibrinogen and prothrombin are 2 other plasma proteins essential for blood clotting. Really important for the body in order to survive. So then it talks about globulin is the 4th type of plasma protein. And there's 2 types of globulins, alpha and beta. They're formed in the liver and act as carriers for molecules such as fats. So gamma globulins or immunoglobulins are super important to know when it comes to like infection and things like that. And you'll learn more about that in term 4 when it comes to HIV. So beautiful. And then gamma globulins are antibodies. Now remember that when you think of gamma globulin, you're going to think of antibody. And then let's see here. And then they synthesize the body in response to antigens, thus providing immunity against infection and disease. So albumin, this is a key concept, is the largest group of plasma proteins, helps maintain blood pressure and circulating fluid volume. The 3 other circulatory plasma proteins are fibrinogen, prothrombin, and globulin. Blah, blah, blah. Boom. Okay. Formed elements. So we have red blood cells, which are also called erythrocytes. They're flattened, bioconcave little discs. They're really cool. Just Google a little picture of them, and you'll have it in your head what a healthy little red blood cell looks like. Actually, on page 269, there's a nice little diagram there, figure 23-1. There's a picture of an erythrocyte. Beautiful little disc. Let's see here. So, when red blood cells mature, they have no nucleus, and therefore no DNA, so RNA cannot be synthesized. Thus, they cannot reproduce and are also unable to synthesize proteins. Red blood cells consist mainly of hemoglobin and a surrounding medium, the stroma. Each cell is enclosed in a cell wall. Since they cannot reproduce or anything like that, they simply are made, they live in your body, they transport oxygen, they do what they're supposed to do, and then they die. And then the average life of a red blood cell, make sure I have this. So how long does one red blood cell last before it dies? 4 months. Awesome. So they last a long time. So erythrocytes, or red blood cells, are the most numerous blood cells, about 25 trillion, and then blah, blah, blah. They're made from stem cells and red bone marrow, mostly in large bones. They're fragile. They wear out quickly. Let's see here. The old ones get ingested by the liver and spleen, and they're used to salvage the iron, which is transported to bone marrow to make new red blood cells. So your body is constantly recycling and making new and new and new. Let's see here. So this is kind of a cool thing. Every second, about 2+ million red blood cells die and are replaced. The body manufactures about 120 to 180 million red blood cells every minute. Erythropoiesis, so that begins in the kidney cells, which is stimulated by decreased oxygen levels to release the hormone erythropoietin, which stimulates red bone marrow to produce red blood cells. Remember that. Okay, so then it kind of talks about different things. It talks about how hemoglobin is saturated with oxygen. Oxyhemoglobin causes blood to be bright. So hemoglobin with oxygen causes the blood to be bright red. So then we have, and then it talks about different things, and then I liked this one. So most carbon dioxide waste is carried away from cells as bicarbonate dissolved in plasma. And then deoxygenated blood is much darker, almost a maroon color. and it's like slow to come out. It's just you're like, this person doesn't look good when you're seeing that when you do a blood draw. Okay, then it talks about hyperbaric oxygenation. We talked about that I think a couple of weeks ago. I don't remember for sure. Anyways, though, basically hyperoxygenation puts a lot of oxygen in the body all at once. So this forces oxygen into the body and allows it to be carried not only by hemoglobin but also by other portions of the blood such as plasma. It is used in treating disorders such as carbon monoxide poisoning, divers, like scuba diving hypoxia, and gas gangrene caused by the anaerobic organism Clostridium, as well as the performance of some surgeries. Also, athletes are tending to use this because more oxygen in the body means better muscle recovery, better muscle use, and then better, performance. It's pretty cool. You see those masks that were like given out in Nike? That's also kind of supposed to like imitate the hyperbaric oxygenation, or making your body produce more red blood cells, which makes more oxygen delivery. Anyways, okay, so the next page, page 270, there's a beautiful box that tells about the functions of the red blood cells. Really good to read. Just remember that, know that, and you'll be great. On page 270, box 23-2. There's some cool key concepts also underneath that box. The ones that I liked a lot were a deficiency in red blood cells is one form of anemia. People living in high altitudes have more red blood cells because each red blood cell carries less oxygen. And red blood cells must be in an isotonic solution to survive. So what I also want you to know, so when it comes to the post-ox, it directly measures arterial oxygen content. Remember what I said, like when the thing is on your finger and it's reading your post-ox? Basically that's like 90-second delay from that red blood cell to the machine. So yeah, it's accurate, but 90 seconds ago accurate, if you know what I mean. So basically though, but it's like measured by that red blood cell and oxygenation on there. Also know the definition of hematocrit, which is the percentage of blood volume occupied by red blood cells. And then you got the hemoglobin, which again is the hema and the oxygen on the red blood cell. Okay, and then talk about other levels. Don't worry about that right now. White blood cells. Okay, so about 1% of blood volume in the healthy adult consists of white blood cells, also known as leukocytes. Leuko meaning white, cyte meaning cell. It's saying that because it does not contain any hemoglobin, which would make it red. Okay, all leukocytes are derived from a cell in the bone marrow, the hematopoietic stem cell. They're spread out through your body. White blood cells defend the body against disease, organisms, toxins, irritants, and other foreign materials. They also assist in repairing damaged tissues. Sometimes they die during this activity and collect with bacteria to form pus. So when you see all that pus coming out of the wound, it's dead white blood cells carrying out anything that's coming out with it. Okay, so then there's another box, 23-3, talks about what white blood cells are. This is important to note when you're looking at lab values for your patients. An abnormal number or character of leukocytes often indicates disease. For example, in leukemia, there is an increase in leukocytes or they are immature. So when you're looking at lab values, you see an increase in white blood cells, you're thinking this patient has an infection, what's going on? Where's the infection? How do I treat it? What kind of infection? Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so, NCLEX alert. Basic knowledge of the hematologic, and lymphatic systems will facilitate your understanding of diagnostic tests and lab values that may be included throughout the NCLEX. Good to know. So then it talks about different types of white blood cells. So again, I'm on page 270. Granular leukocytes or granulocytes. So granular leukocytes are also called polymorphonuclear leukocytes or PMNs, or segmented neutrophils or SEGs, because their nuclei have so many lobes or the lobes are so divided as to look like more than one nucleus. In granulocytes, membrane-bound enzymes aid in digestion of foreign particles in a process called endocytosis. Here's the bacteria, here's the granulocyte, and engulfs it, eats it, and if it can break it down, it tends to continue on with life. Like if it can't, then it kind of forms its way up to the top, making pus. Okay, so granulocytes are divided into three subgroups. Neutrophils eosinophils, and basophils based on their staining properties. When they say staining properties, they mean by looking on like a slide and like looking at it and seeing kind of what it's looking like. Okay, so neutrophils are the most numerous white blood cells. Are phagocytes. So phagocytes on your page 271, figure 23.2 is a nice picture of what that kind of process is. Phagocytosis is the eating of the foreign object. So there are the granulocytes, most commonly called PMNs, which is that polymorphonuclear leukocytes, PMNs. Because they are segmented, they are also called segs. So neutrophils, PMNs, segs, kind of all the same name. They're colorless unless they are stained to be visible. Hi, honey. Let's see here. So they are considered to be the first line of defense against bacteria and also defend against fungi in some measure. I love you. You're so silly. Oh, Mama wants you. Oh, let's see what she wants. Let's see here. They can move away from blood vessels and travel directly to sites of infection or damaged tissues. Blah, 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 blah. So then the term endocytosis involves both phagocytosis, which is engulfing of particulate matter, and pinocytosis, engulfing of extracellular fluid materials. Neutrophils increase in number during bacterial infections, burns, or inflammation. So, when you think of a bacteria into your body, what are you going to think about that's going to help aid your body? You're going to think of either a neutrophil, a PMNS, or a segs. That's kind of what you're thinking. Those three things are pretty interchangeable. Okay. They have a very short lifespan, about 10 hours. That sucks. So they need to be replaced frequently. So when an infection occurs, more neutrophils are released from bone marrow. Blah, 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 blah. So also, when looking at white blood cell counts, an increased number of bands signifies an infection. This may also be described as a shift to the left versus a shift to the right. Where is that? So, versus a shift to the right indicates an abundance of lymphocytes that would indicate a viral infection. So left, bacteria, right, viral. That's what you're going to be thinking, however you put it in your head. That's what you got to think about. Excuse me. I love you.
I love you.
And then we have what's called eosinophils.
Ow.
So they make up... You okay?
Yeah.
They-
This tape.
Oh, I'm sorry. So they're characterized, so eosinophils. I'm looking on page 271 now.
Okay.
You gonna go see what Mommy's doing? So eosinophils live about 12 hours to 3 days. They increase in number during allergic reactions and parasitic infections. So you got a bee sting, any sort of allergic reaction, you're gonna have a rise in eosinophils. Kind of what you need to know. Then you have what's called basophils. They are not phagocytes. They make up less than 2% of white blood cells, and they are also involved in allergic and inflammatory reactions. They contain heparin, and if you remember what heparin might be, it's an anticoagulant. So you're going to give that, for example, in response of an MI. You want to prevent any sort of blood clots from happening. So they contain heparin, and they release histamine in response to inflammation or another immune stimulus. So then it kind of talks about it. So one thing I want you to remember though is the, let me see here, where is it? So a reversal agent for heparin is protamine sulfate. Protamine sulfate. I'll make sure to write that down. Okay, so then it talks about agranular leukocytes. So, granular, they have lobes. Agranular, they do not contain lobes. So the nuclei of these white blood cells do not contain lobes. The two subgroups of agranular are lymphocytes and monocytes. Let's see here. They can function for about 100 to 300 days. They are produced in the lymphatic tissue of the spleen, lymph nodes, and thymus, and in the hematopoietic tissues and red bone marrow. So lymphocytes are the smallest and most numerous of the agranular white blood cells. They mature in bone marrow and can be differentiated into several types, in either B cells or T cells. So B cells are antibodies that bind to pathogens so they can be destroyed. T cells are T helper cells. They coordinate the immune response. So you see that a lot in like HIV/AIDS patients, but you'll learn that again later on. So T cells, so immune response, they're cytotoxic, which means cell destroying, and can kill viruses, infected cells, and tumor cells. And then it talks about different kinds of things. So just know that lymphocytes increase in number during infectious processes, particularly those caused by viral infections or immune disorders. So again, you have granular leukocytes. When you see an increase in your neutrophils, granular, bacteria, shift to the left. Agranular is they have no lobes, T cells, viral, shift to the right. However you can get that in your head, make it happen. Sorry. Okay, so then you have what's called monocytes. They're the largest white blood cells. So those are the big guys. They're there to literally just clean up the mess from everything that's been going on. They're there just to clean it up. So the monocytes are also clean up after phagocytosis by ingesting cellular debris and dead tissue, as well as presenting fragments of pathogens to the T cells so they can be killed or so antibodies can be formed. T cells, antibodies as well. A high monocyte count may be caused by a viral or fungal infection, tuberculosis, or certain chronic diseases. Then you have what's called macrophages. They're phagocytic cells, as are neutrophils, but macrophages collect in the body structures such as the spleen, liver, and lymph nodes, where large amounts of fluids are processed. Here, they defend against invading microorganisms and promote wound healing. Macrophages, wound healing. Kind of a way to remember it. They also stimulate lymphocytes and other immune cells to function. All of these things are working together all the time. So, but if you see one rise in another, it could indicate different things. Neutrophils, bacteria, versus leukocytes, lymphocytes, viral. Okay, so then it has a key concept at the end of the page, blah, 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 how long we can live. Okay, so then it talks about platelets. Sorry, 1 second. Platelets, platelets are thrombocytes. Thrombo meaning clot, cyte meaning cell, clot cell. Think of it that way. Break down the word to remember it easier for yourself. They exist in the billions, and are formed in red bone marrow by megakaryocytes, whatever. They're essential in blood clotting. Platelets are essential in blood clotting. So sometimes they say, what are their platelets? What's the number? Especially when it comes to some sort of trauma, they're looking to see how well they can be able to clot their blood, especially when things are torn. And then it talks about different things here. Let me see here. I don't want to... okay, there it is. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Okay, so then blood clotting and hemorrhage. Hemostasis refers to the cessation of bleeding. Hemostasis is everything back to normal, no more bleeding. Let's see here. So the hemostatic initial response includes vascular spasm, vasoconstriction, platelet plug formation, and blood clotting. Example, the coagulation process that forms a fibrin clot. So then it talks about blood clotting and different ways that your body does it. So basically what I want you to remember is that fibrin, so let me see here. So thrombin, during this, okay, blah, 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 blah. So there's a nice little picture and diagram on page 272, figure 23.3 that kind of talks about this. But basically what I want you to know is that thrombin then activates various amino acid factors and specifically converts the soluble plasma protein fibrinogen into soluble threads of fibrin, the building block of the hemostatic plug. Fibrin, the building block of the hemostatic plug. The threads of fibrin form a net to entrap blood cells and plates to form a clot, which act like a plug in a hole and tends to draw injured edges together. As the clot shrinks, a clear yellow liquid, or serum, is squeezed out. So what is serum? Plasma, clotting factors, serum. Okay. Serum is like plasma, except that fibrinogen and other clotting elements are now absent. So again, plasma, minus clotting factors equals serum. I'll write that down. So it's important to know that vitamin K is necessary for the formation of prothrombin and other clotting factors. So vitamin K, it's from, let's see here. So vitamin K is really low in newborns, so that's why they give them a vitamin K shot, because it's formed from the bacteria of their gut. And since newborns have like almost no bacteria in their gut, they're like, well, we should give them a vitamin K boost. Some people do it, some people don't. Did I do it? I don't remember if I gave my baby a vitamin K shot. Anyways, though, over time it forms and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, though, so vitamin K is needed it's from bacteria, vitamin K in your gut, needed for clotting factors. Boom. Then it talks about a thrombus or an emboli or a clot and how it can travel. So then it talks about hemorrhage. Okay, so hemorrhage is obviously the escape of blood from blood vessels. Remember what shock is? It's a lack of circulating blood flow, usually caused by hemorrhage, so hemorrhagic shock. So just know that when it comes to like a cut, it's much easier for a body to clot versus like a tear. So let's just say you're in like a motor vehicle accident or something and you tear something. So your muscles go like this. So whenever you work out, you're tearing your muscle and it's building, it's building, it's building. So when you tear your muscle, think of all of that open blood vessels now just bleeding. Remember, arterial is that spurting with the with the heart rate, versus venous is that steady flow. So when you're going to start an IV on somebody, that's when you're going to get that nice steady flow because you're starting in their venous system. Anyways, so that's kind of what's going on there. Okay, so then page 273. Blood groups. Human blood falls into one of 4 inherited groups: A, B, AB, and O. A, B, AB, and O. And then it talks about different ways of like types and cross matching. You check their blood, make sure it's the same. If you do a blood transfusion with somebody that's not the same blood type or can't accept that blood type, there can be a huge reaction. We'll get more into that in chapter 82 when I make that video. So basically just know that. And then there's different RH factors. There's an RH positive and RH negative. But this just talks about, so the most commonly found RH factor and the one most likely to cause a transfusion reaction is abbreviated D, Duffy. Blood is tested for the presence of D antigen. If the blood contains D factor, the person is said to be RH positive. If this factor is absent, the person is RH negative. And we'll get more into that later on, but there's some cool things when it comes to blood. All right, let's talk about the lymph. So, the lymphatic system is related to, yet separate from, the hematologic system. The lymphatic system also functions as part of the body's immune system and is sometimes referred to as the secondary circulatory system. And then talks about all the things that it collects and does and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like the cleaning mechanism of your body. It kind of grabs stuff, cleans it out, and boom. Just kind of, it's like a nice circulatory system. Okay, so page 274 has a nice picture of all the different lymph nodes in your body. And then it also tells you about the functions of the lymphatic system. Know these. So the functions of the lymphatic system include immune response, defense against infection and prevention of metastasis or spreading of malignancies, removal of excess ISF interstitial fluid from tissues, absorption and transport of fatty acids and fats to the circulatory system, and transport of antigen-presenting cells such as dendritic cells, to lymph nodes to activate an immune response. So then it talks about the formation of lymph, blah, 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 blah. Just read about it. Just know that it's there and how it's made. Then the movement of lymph, also know that, so kind of like your heart, how you have your valves, which is one way, the lymphatic vessels contain one-way semilunar valves that prevent backflow of lymphatic fluid into the ISF. So then it talks about the different functions and the movement. Also know that after the fluid moves through the nodes, it is transported by other lymphatic vessels to either the right lymphatic duct or the thoracic duct. Good to know. So again, on page 275, after the fluid moves through the nodes, it is transported by other lymphatic vessels to either the right lymphatic duct or the thoracic duct. It is propelled, so the lymphatic fluid is propelled through the body by rhythmic contractions which occur because of changes in abdominal and thoracic pressure during breathing and because of skeletal muscle contractions. So when you exercise, not only are you helping your body move everything through, but you're kind of cleaning your body out. So kind of a cool thing. So exercise will kind of raise your core temperature, will help decrease all the fatty deposits in your body, and will also be collected and filtered out through your body better. So the more you exercise, or like the more consistent you do your exercise, the more consistent your body can keep yourself clean and just kind of prevent anything from like building up and blah, blah, blah. So when it comes to lymph nodes and nodules, hi. So many lymph nodes appear in the neck, the groin, and the armpits. So cervical, inguinal, and axillary. So for example, okay, so then let's just keep going. So page 275, lymph nodes perform several vital functions. The most important is that of filtering out and destroying pathogens. The swollen glands that may appear in a person's cervical, inguinal, and axillary regions during illness are lymph nodes at work. So for example, can I do something on you really quick? When somebody is sick, they always feel like around here, like around their neck, they're
Mommy,
feeling for
are you ready?
swollen lymph nodes.
Mommy, don't leave it out.
She's not going anywhere, honey. So when they feel like around here, so if you, in your A&P book, look up where the lymph nodes are and you can feel that, and they're feeling if anything is swollen or tender or anything like that. And we're going to go into that more later. And then just know that if they're enlarged, they have macrophages at work, or macrophages eat and destroy invaders. So when palpated, these enlarged, non-malignant nodes are soft and tender and may become painful. So if there's an infection, they're going to be tender and they're going to be painful to the touch. So they're like, ow, ow, ow. That's when you know you have an infection. Versus when you have lymph nodes in cancer, unfortunately, cancer cells can travel from the primary site of invasion to distant sites via the lymphatic circulation and lymph nodes. And when these are palpated, they're hard. Let me make sure. They're hard and not painful. So the best example I can tell you is, for example, when a woman gets breast cancer, here's the cancer there, and with all of that lymph nodes right there in the axillary region, it's so easy for that cancer cells to be inside the lymphatic tissue and to be transported through. So that's why when they take out, when they do like, when they remove the breast, they also remove a lot of the lymph nodes around the area to prevent any sort of, either if they have the cancer cells, or prevent any sort of transportation, or they're just like, let's just do it as a precautionary measure. So that's what's going on when they do that with all the lymph nodes. So that's why when you take all that stuff out, you cannot do a blood pressure on the side where they got it removed unless it was cleared by a doctor and it's been so many years, or et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so the lymphatic organs. I'm on page 276 now. Lymphatic organs include tonsils, spleen, and thymus, masses of the lymphatic tissue with somewhat different functions than those of lymph vessels or nodes. So the tonsils and spleen are designed to filter tissue fluid, although not necessarily lymph. The thymus plays a role in the development of the immune system. So then it kind of talks about how the tonsils used to be like the thing that just got removed the second there was an infection. Unfortunately, that caused other infections, so that was a big bummer. So now they're only taken out very, like, as a last resort if it's just not going to help. Then we have the spleen. The spleen was also like thought to be a useless organ back then. So they're like, oh, let's just take your spleen out, no problem. However, though, it's super important because it's the largest lymphatic organ. It also stores red blood cells. So when your body has a depletion, let's just say there's a hemorrhage going on, your spleen's going to be, it's going to release all kinds of red blood cells. So, for example, so it has several functions. Just know in an adult, the spleen destroys old red blood cells and forms bilirubin from hemoglobin. It acts as a reservoir for blood, which can be released to the body quickly in an emergency such as hemorrhage. 20% to 30% of the body's platelets are also stored there. So then it talks about different things. So, although its functions are important, the spleen can be removed without ill effects. I tend to differ. An adult without a spleen, however, is more susceptible to some bacterial infections, such as pneumonia and meningitis. After spleen removal, the liver, bone marrow, and lymph nodes assume some of the spleen's functions. So with the whole flu season, pneumonia being a big deal, it's nice to have your spleen there to help aid in that counter against all that bacterial and blah, blah, blah. So the thymus is basically during your fetal and early neonatal life. It's there in like the center of your chest, the sternum area. It's basically there to help promote immune support. Okay, so then the system physiology. Blood circulation, talks about pulmonary circulation, we kind of talked about in the heart already. Systemic circulation, we kind of already talked about that. Then you have what's called the hepatic portal circulation. Okay, so let's see here. The hepatic portal circulation, I'm on page 277 by the way. The hepatic portal circulation is unique because it begins and ends with capillaries. The capillaries from the stomach, intestine, spleen, and pancreas empty into veins. These veins drain into a common vessel, the portal vein, which leads into the liver. And then figure 23.8 has a nice little picture there for you. Let's see here. So then it kind of talks about that. Then we have what's called cerebral circulation. So circulation to the brain is vital. Obviously, when it comes to a stroke, time is brain, brain is time. The longer it takes things for it to get done, the less brain you're going to have afterwards. So, the common carotid artery is the internal carotid artery. The internal carotid anastomosis, which is basically connecting things together, or one would say so end to end. Let me make sure I said that right. So end to end. So basically, it connects to the circle of Willis, thus providing oxygenated blood to the brain. The circle of Willis is the most important thing that spreads the blood throughout the brain. If there's a clot in there, boom, half your brain's not getting any blood flow. Sorry, my baby's waking up. Okay, then it talks about different kind of circulation through there, blah, blah, blah. Hi, honey. The circle of Willis helps provide uninterrupted blood supply to the brain. The blood-brain barrier protects the brain from harmful substances. So the blood-brain barrier is the adaptation of the circulation that protects the brain. The things to know that will prevent things. No, don't do that. Will prevent. Let me see here. So the things I want you to know. Yes, honey.
Can you get me some water?
I think Aunt Diana's over there. Can you ask her, honey? So, I'm so sorry, guys. Let me find what I wanted to tell you. Where is it? Here it is. So, what are 3 things that will not cross the blood-brain barrier? Chemo, drugs, and red blood cells. It's a nice protective measure to protect the most important thing. Well, one of the most important things. So then we have the lymphatic circulation. So lymph only carries fluid away from tissues. So let's see here. And then it talks about different ways of it draining. So just know that disorders of the blood and lymph can be quickly life-threatening. So chapter 82 will describe more disorders when it comes to blood and lymph disorders. And that's kind of it. Also, just know, on page 279, there's a table 23.3, the effects of aging and hematologic and lymphatic systems. The older you get, the more things tend to wear away and not be as efficient. So that means more problems. So with the aging population that we have with all the baby boomers, it's good to know these things, because then you're more likely to understand why these things are happening, which will just make you more of a critical thinker, which will make you more aware of how things can go. Okay, so 2 things at the bottom of page 278. Special considerations, know the elderly care, NCLEX alert. Variations of growth and development across the lifespan are common NCLEX clinical concepts. Issues related to aging may involve prenatal, infant, young adult, and mature adult or older adult concerns. So knowing the lifespan and how things are is going to make you more successful in the NCLEX. So really quickly, the 2 handouts I wanted you to look at. This handout right here is really nice when it comes to showing you the development of the erythrocytes. Just take a look at it, understand it, have an idea of it. The back side of it, this is good to know, good things to know. So there's 2 terms when it comes to bleeding that occurs in the skin: petechiae and purpura. Petechiae refers to smaller lesions, whereas purpura are terms that refer to larger lesions. So in some situations, purpura may be palpable. Just know when these 2 things are manifesting, it usually indicates your patient has a low platelet count. Okay, and then when this handout, the lymphatic circulation, this is really good to know. I mean, it just kind of goes over everything that what we kind of talked about. Just know that the lymphatic circulation, it does all that stuff. So once within the lymphatic system, the extracellular fluid, which is now called lymph, drains into larger vessels called the lymphatics. And then it talks about how it goes into the thoracic duct, and then it does all that kind of stuff. And then, let's see here. So the lymphatic system helps protect the body against infection by producing white blood cells called lymphocytes, which help rid the body of disease-causing microorganisms. Good things to know. And then just know, let's see here. Also on the back, the second paragraph, this one right here, that's good to know. So since the lymph is derived from the interstitial fluid, its composition continually changes as the blood and the surrounding cells continually exchange substances with the interstitial fluid. So it is generally similar to blood plasma, which is the fluid extracellular matrix of whole blood. So then it kind of just talks about it. So just kind of a neat thing. The word lymph is derived from the name of the ancient Roman deity of freshwater, Lympha. Okay, so that's it for chapter 23. Thanks for hanging in there. Sorry for all the interruptions. Hopefully it doesn't deter you from understanding anything. If you're having a problem understanding it, please just let me know. The 2 handouts are good to know. Just know those points. Below, I'm going to have I think it's either the comment or description box, whatever. I'm going to have important notes that I want you to know when it comes to different pop quizzes. Anyways, though, I'll be getting chapter 82 out eventually. Thank you so much. And again, just contact me with anything, if any questions that you have. Just, if you read the chapter, you'll know it too. But just put my video on in the background. I don't really care, whatever. It's here to help you. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, you guys.